Hi, my name is Kailee Derek, and my partners were Derek and Braedyn, and we decided to do a quantitative study. And the focus of our study was if the number of extracurricular activities that a student was involved in had any effect on their cumulative GPA or even just their semester GPA. So, to test this theory, we surveyed 40 different students and we had 10 from each grade, and we tried our best to get a mixture of both male and female representation from each class and out of those 10 students from each class. So, a little bit about our project. Our question that we were researching was, do increased levels of campus activity involvement among Culver Stockton College students affect average grade point averages? And we ended up looking at both cumulative GPAs and semester GPAs just to see if there was any difference at all throughout those averages. Our alternative hypothesis for this project was that increased levels of extracurricular involvement led to higher cumulative GPAs among Culver Stockton College students, which left our null hypothesis as increased extracurricular involvement has no effect on Culver Stockton College students' cumulative GPA. And like I said, we focused on cumulative GPAs for this, but we also went ahead and surveyed people on semester GPAs as well, just to see if there was any differences or correlations or anything along that line of the same. So we ended up looking at three main categories within our research. The first one being the differences in gender of male and female. So like I said, we tried to get a pretty even number of men and women in the survey. It was a little difficult just because it was hard to find willing participants in equal number. Our results were that there weren't really huge significant differences between both men and women when we completed the survey and kind of looked at our data as a whole. Females had slightly higher numbers, as you can see kind of throughout this. They were typically involved in just a little bit more extracurricular activities than males were, and then also, as you can see here, had just a little bit higher of a semester and cumulative GPA as a whole, but just not a lot of difference between the two of them. The second main type or heading that we looked at was differences in types of extracurricular activities. So the three that we listed on our survey were academic, which would be any kind of honor organizations or any kind of like psychology or history club organizations. All of those would fall under academic. Athletic, just any kind of sports teams, or a lot of people had counted like intramural teams or club teams in that. Greek was just any Greek life, both male or female, sorority or fraternity. And then other was just kind of the catch-all of anything that maybe people weren't sure if it fell into the other category. We didn't want to be exclusive in the research that we were conducting. So as you can see from the numbers, not a huge difference in really any of the one categories. People were mainly involved in academic, as you can see here from the numbers that are from the graph, there was a lot of people that, even just talking while they were filling out the survey, were in honor societies or different things like that. And then obviously the highest GPA for both semesterly and cumulative was people that fell into the other category, which honestly kind of surprised me personally, I guess, just because I know from reports that I've gotten, at least, that Greek life students have typically had kind of a higher GPA in general. So I was kind of surprised, I guess, that that wasn't the highest GPA throughout all of it. But there's not necessarily a huge significant difference throughout any of these different categories. We're talking 0.2s and 0.3s and differences of data of this semester in cumulative GPAs. The last subject that we looked at was differences in majors. We had people just write in their majors, so we had several different majors that were turned in. We picked the 4 main types that we received, which was accounting, and then criminal justice and legal studies we grouped together just because there's so many similarities throughout their curriculum and kind of their requirements, and so many people were double majoring in those that filled out the surveys that we just thought it was appropriate that they be grouped together. And then biological chemistry and psychology, those were the most answers, I guess, to the surveys that were returned were these 4 different majors. I think we had about 5 representatives for each of these majors. And on the graphs, you can tell that just very marginally, biological chemistry majors seem to be involved in more extracurricular activities than the other 3 majors. But again, it's just fractions of differences. Honestly, there was not a major difference in any of these majors, or honestly any of the other majors that we had looked at. And you can tell that for both the highest cumulative and highest semester GPA, that the accounting majors had seemed to receive a little bit higher of a GPA, but there was still not a huge significant difference between from the other majors. And again, with the other majors that we received responses from, there was still not a huge difference in those either. So obviously with every research project, there's going to be some challenges and some things that when you finish, you kind of look back on and say, man, I wish that I had done this differently, or if I had been given the opportunity to do it again, then I would maybe kind of change this up or reword this. I think our biggest challenge as a group was our survey that we had produced. When we made the survey, we made everything in ranges, like all of the answers in ranges. So it was a GPA in a range from 2 to a 2.5 was answer A, and then 2.5 to a 3, and so on and so forth. And so when people were answering them, we weren't getting exact GPAs. We were getting very broad ranges, and we didn't look ahead and foresee that as a problem. And so then we just had to average out the answers that we received, which ended up giving us a little bit less accurate of answers than we would have hoped for. We also did this range for the number of extracurricular activities that people were involved in. So it was, you're involved in no extracurricular activities, or you're involved in 1 to 2, or 3 to 4, or 4 or more. And that was, again, just a very broad range, and it was kind of hard, I guess, to kind of average out those and then get some really exact and very specific numbers from those ranges. So I think going back, we would just, I guess, make the answers very specific in not make them ranges at all. So for extracurricular activities, it would just say, like, how many activities are you involved in outside of school, and just make it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if it's more than 5, you just write in that number. And then the same thing for the GPAs, either have people just kind of self-report their exact GPA if they were comfortable with that. And if not, just kind of giving us a more specific number than a range, but maybe just not an exact number, because it was just very hard to average out the range and then make it kind of fair and equal, and then to evaluate the results based off of those numbers that we received. I kind of mentioned this earlier. It was kind of a goal from the beginning to get an even number of both boys and girls for each class, which would mean 5 girls and 5 boys that were seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. And it was kind of difficult just because we decided to collect data outside of lunch, and we were just kind of haphazardly stopping people and asking them to fill out the survey. So it was hard to keep track of even how many we had for each class, much less whether we had 5 boys and 5 girls from each class. So we definitely had more female participation in the survey, so it just kind of made it more difficult to calculate out the males' answers and responses. And our last challenge, I think, just every college kid is busy, so it was just difficult to find time to meet together as a group and be able to work together and get the projects done in the amount of time that we would have to be able to set aside, because our schedules were just very conflicting. So it was difficult, but I mean, we made it work, and we just kind of shared a lot of projects over Google Docs and just different things like that, and kind of worked on it on our own pace and everything. So that was just another challenge. Our final thoughts were that I thought the data was very interesting just because there wasn't any super big differences in any of the categories. Like, there really wasn't, people that are involved in 3 extracurricular activities have very much higher GPAs than people involved in 2 or 1. There was no defiant results of, oh, wow, if you're involved in this, then you typically have a way higher GPA. Like, it was just very kind of, everything was very equal. And I think maybe potentially if we had surveyed more people, then maybe we would have seen a more of a difference throughout those categories. I just thought it was interesting that there was hardly any difference throughout any of the categories. And then the data was a lot easier to collect than I had originally anticipated. Students were very willing to stop and fill out just a 10-question survey and just to help out other students. And that kind of, I guess, surprised me, especially doing it right before lunch, just because I know people are usually in a hurry and trying to eat and get to class and meetings and other such things. So that was very nice, definitely, to just have people stop and help us out. So that was our project. Thanks.